Quick question for you. Have you ever sat through a meeting and thought, I did half the work for this project, but no one even knows it's me? That's the danger of staying silent about your wins. If people don't hear it, they won't see it. And if they don't see it, you are losing out on opportunities for recognition, promotions, or even other opportunities. But here's the fine line about this. If you share it the wrong way, you could come across like you're bragging or being arrogant. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to communicate your wins in a way that will make leadership notice you, without ever sounding like you're showing off. Make sure you stick around to the end of this video because I'm going to be sharing 3 templates that you can use to start communicating from today in a strategic way and get leadership to notice you the right way. So let's break this down quickly. So when someone's giving an update in a team meeting, there's 2 ways you feel after you've heard that update. The first way is the bragging style. Whatever the person is saying, what you're hearing is, I'm amazing, I did this all myself. But on the other hand, if it's positioned properly and strategically, it sounds like, this is what I did, this is the impact, and now this is the result. And these are the people who were involved in this work. Did you notice the difference in those 2 approaches? One is very self-centered and one's very strategic, aimed on the business. So when you shift the way you speak from I did this to a different style, which is impact plus outcome, people start to see you differently. You start to be seen more as a leader. You're not seen as someone who's just bragging and wanting airtime. So really the trick here is to make sure that you don't sound egocentric and that really you're giving strategic updates. Focus on how your work moves the business forward, the steps you took, how you helped teams or unlocked other teams, and how you solved real problems. All right, so here are 3 templates that you can start using from today. Whether you're sending an email or you're communicating on Slack or a messaging channel, or if you're doing an update via slides to leadership, these are 3 distinct ways that you can interchange and use to make sure that your wins are noticed. The first one is the email update. Now, this is the one that I use the most, primarily because when you start to use emails and really start to detail out the win, the value, it can get forwarded on, it can get shared. So if you share this with your leadership, it can then go on to senior leadership showing, look, this is what's been done. And it's a really good trail that is left of evidence that you have made an impact. And it's really quite impactful in large matrix organizations like the one I work in. When you're in a large global investment bank, having an email trail where there's some real value goes right to the top of the chain, and then that really sets you apart from other people as well and really gives you opportunities. So how do you structure this email? Let's go into the detail of that. The subject of this email could be an update or an impact update, but just make it relevant to what it is you're trying to say, the value you've created. Maybe it's a project name or something that's been delivered, but make it about update of impact. And you don't want to make these emails too long because people don't have time to read these. You want this to either be bullet pointed or to be summarized in a few lines. But effectively, you start with what you set out to achieve. So the problem you try to solve. Maybe it's a project that, people are aware of across the business. Maybe it isn't, but you'll have to just do that in 1 or 2 lines. Talk about the problem, what it is you're trying to solve, and just give a bit of a context before you get into the value. Then you detail what you achieved. So what has been the outcome? What has been achieved from this project or the work you did in that project? And this is the crucial bit, and this is to show numbers, the numerical values, the actual outcomes that were measurable. And it's good to do this either in a table or bold these bits or just show that these are the highlighting key takeaways you want the leadership to see. So this could be things like time saved, or maybe there's less risk now for a certain process, or it could even be that you've generated more revenue. But these are the measurable, impactful value adds that have been produced by the work you've done. And another crucial part to end the email would be the next step. The next step is great because you can always show that you've gone beyond that now. You're moving on. The momentum is there. What are you doing next? What's the next thing you want to achieve? Just show leaders that there is a plan and that you're actually already working on it. You're ahead of the game. So if you structure this email the right way, get all of those points in, and send that to your leadership, maybe to the project team, but also to wider committees that are involved in this, you will notice that there'll be a chain. It'll be a chain reaction, and this email will get forwarded on to say, look, this is what's been achieved. And then it's noted there that you did this. So this is all on record, but it's also giving you the visibility that you need. Now, in some organizations, in more of a day-to-day, you use Slack or Teams or any messaging app as a way of communicating day-to-day. And this is something you don't want to give too formal updates on, but you do also want to use this as a channel to communicate your wins. And you can do this more in a sort of informal way, but also shorter. You can't write that email, for example, in a Slack channel. It will just look odd, but also it's too much detail. So when you find the opportunity in a day-to-day to do this, you'll know when it's the right time to do this effectively, but it's a one-liner. So this is what you would say as an example. So it would be, for example, to your team, you would say, hey team, quick win, this is what we did, X, Y, and Z. Then you would quickly say, this means that now we've unlocked this impact. What is the impact effectively? And then you will quickly say, now we're doing this, X, Y, and Z. And then also you say, thanks to everyone who collaborated, or thanks to this person or the other for helping me achieve this. And that is all in a sentence. It's very short, and it's really sort of day-to-day updates. These ones are really good if you're working on a cross-functional project and there's a group chat for it, or even in your own team day-to-day, just acknowledging people that have worked together, showing what the impact and value has been. Even if you weren't closely involved, but you had a key part to play in it, you should still use the Slack method because it shows that you're communicating like a leader. And the third template that is very impactful as well, predominantly when you're in more, I would say, executive leadership, or you're in more senior leadership position, is the leadership one-pager. Now, this is something I use very often now, and it could be a one-pager depending on your style of company you work in. For example, in large corporates, they love PowerPoint slides or a slide or a deck, but just a one pager. You'll hear that term a lot. So just one slide. But what you do is you put all of the value on that one slide. So you could use this as part of a project update. Maybe there's a monthly meeting about the work that you're doing, the projects you're on. Make sure you get a slide in there. Talk to the people who make those decks or people who make those documents, and make sure that your information is there, that one pager that you produce. Now, this is different from the email because the email is giving you numbers in a sort of short, sharp way, impact, sort of a highlight of what this slide is going to do in more detail. So how you start the slide is talking about the problem you solve, the context, the goal. So what it is that you're trying to achieve, what problem you're trying to solve. Do that at the top. It could just be a few lines, but really setting the scene for what is this particular piece of work about, how is it mapped to a strategic goal, maybe it's an objective for your team or your department. You have to do that connection piece up front. Then you're going to go into more detail about what's been achieved. So these outcomes are a little bit more detailed. You're going to give 2 to 3 maybe bullets or more on what has been achieved, some of the things that have changed as a result of what's been introduced. And then the impact. The impact, again, is more about what it is that has now been derived from this work. So business value. So, for example, it could be productivity gains. It could be that you have now introduced a new distribution channel to the company. It could be anything depending on your product or your project. But it's really about the business value. You're going to go into detail. Usually at the slide one-pager level, it's leadership that are seeing these. So leadership want to understand how this maps to their goals goals, to their objectives that they are being measured on, and it's evidence for them. So you're helping them in a way reach their goals. So that's why it's important for you to map the business value as well, not just the metrics like time saved, etc. Those are important and those should be on the slide, but also the business value, how it further impacts the bank and how it's connected. In my case, a bank, it could be any organization, but how it's connected to the wider goals of the company, and also what's next or what's coming now in the next month or so. It gets leadership excited, but it also shows that there's momentum, a bit similar to what you did in the email, but this one will be a bit more detailed. You might go into the next quarter, the quarter after that. You might show them what's coming up for the rest of the year. So it's just showing that there is a roadmap and that there's investment in this, that, you know, people are working on this. It's a train that is rolling effectively. And that's what you want to show all on this slide. These are very impactful slides, you know, especially when they're being presented and presenting them in the right way as well. So if you have the opportunity to present this slide, then you really want to focus on the value that's created and the next steps, rather than just focusing on the problem statement up front. So I'll give you a real example of this from my perspective. So when I switched and pivoted my job in the investment bank I worked in to start working on generative AI products and platforms and building those out, it's a really massive piece of work that a lot of people don't understand. And it's how do you show, you know, the impact, how do you show the value that's being created, but also explain the wins, you know, show without showing off. And that's exactly what I had to do over the last 18 months or so, is really use a combination of these templates to show that the platform I've created has done a few things. So for example, summarizing documents that are hundreds of pages long using AI, and the time that is saved versus, you know, writing and drafting reports that took 7 people 3 weeks to do, you know, showing all of these different ways that AI has helped the company, but also the journey that I've been on to build these tools as well. I would send email updates regularly to leadership with that same template format that I explained earlier, but also very high impact one pagers. These one pagers could be used in leadership meetings, in any forum really, or when I knew there was a group meeting going on, I would use these as well. The result is outstanding. You'll notice yourself that you'll become more visible. Leadership will talk to you about these things. In my case, the chief technology officer of the bank I work in is always communicating with me, and now looking at these one pagers, these things that have been created to say, look at the visibility this is giving us. These are great use cases. This is exactly the sort of evidence we need. And that's the power of strategic updates. It makes your work impossible to ignore. And it also positions you as someone who's driving outcomes for the company. So I hope this video has shown you that communicating wins is also not about bragging. You can make it about showing yourself as a good leader. And a combination of these templates is important. You know, the email, the messaging system, the one-page slides, these all in tandem will help you really tie your name to wins. And when there's big results, you'll notice that your name is associated with that. Even if it's with a number of other names, the fact is you become more visible by doing this. Now I want to hear from you. What sort of templates have you used? Which of these have been successful for you? Drop it in the comments, and I'm happy to give my own feedback on your updates and how you are communicating as well. If you found this video helpful, hit subscribe and stay tuned for more content on how to navigate work like a pro. See you in the next one.